Hi everyone, I thought I would just make one more video mainly for the benefit of people who have been absent from class, but also for anyone who's just wanting to revise a little bit about introductions, how to put them together, what a thesis statement is, and then how you can finally structure your conclusions for your speeches. So here we go. So as you can see on this slide, we're still talking about our examples on belonging so that you can transfer your understanding to the concept of cultural identity. So what we looked at in class, or I should say what you looked at when I was away last Monday, you looked at 3 different sentences, and each of them is hypothetically a sentence that would be a topic sentence for different body paragraphs in this essay or this speech about belonging that we've been looking at. So they are very short, as you'll see. They're very clear. They're very succinct. They're not overly complicated. They are designed to present the key ideas of the paragraphs that they will be the beginning of. What you'll see on the next slide, and this is the reason why they are color-coded, these sentences, I've actually just transferred them into my introduction, and this part here, this colored section, makes up the bulk of my thesis statement. So your thesis statement, remember, is just the overall argument that you will use in the introduction of a speech or an essay, and this should be what appears throughout the remainder of your speech's body. So you can see to start with, I've just got a topic sentence which sums up what the entire speech or essay will be about. To feel a sense of connection with others is a fundamental part of the human experience. So it's something that everybody must have in their lives. To feel as though we belong, it is essential that we first have a strong understanding and acceptance of who we are. So that topic sentence, or sorry, that sentence there was actually the topic sentence for the paragraph that we've been looking at in class, the one about the poem Felix Chernevsky. So that has just been transferred into the first part of my thesis statement. This second sentence, once we have this understanding, a sense of belonging can be formed with people or places where a significant connection has occurred. That's in reference to another poem about his first home in Australia. And then the last part of the thesis, however, so I've used the word however to show that I'm presenting a counter argument, to show that I'm presenting an idea that is very, very different from these other 2 ideas. However, belonging can also be a choice where some individuals may choose to reject connections with different social and cultural groups. So that one is actually referring to the book, The Perks of Being a Wallflower. It has also been made into a great film where there are lots of different social groups and they can actually reject or embrace connections with other people. And the last sentence, of course, is just to give the information for the reader. So these very different or vastly different understandings of belonging are communicated through the poetry of Felix Chernevsky and The Perks of Being a Wallflower, written by Stephen Chbosky. Alrighty. So this is, like, again, this is just an example of one way that you can do it. You could definitely make changes. And what I'm noticing in drafts is that people are adding in some persuasive devices. So using rhetorical questions, maybe adding in a little bit more emotive language than you'd normally see in an essay, because we have to remember as well that you guys are presenting speeches. So if it's not strictly following the essay format in all areas, then that is actually okay. Just make sure that you're not doing anything too crazy, as we've discussed in class. All right, so that's our introduction, and we can see very clearly where our thesis statement is. So you should try and do something like this in your own pieces. Moving on though, so this is actually the warm-up activity that we did, or that we used, sorry, last Friday in class. And as you can see, each sentence has been made a different color. And the reason for this was because each of the different groups of tables were given a sentence and they had to reword it. And you'll see why in a moment. So we have the same introduction as before. Topic sentence is in purple, thesis is in blue and green, and then the last part just stating what our texts are is in this yellow or orange yellow color, this golden color. What I think you could do, and again, not the only way to do it, but one way to do it when you're starting out, what you could do with your introduction is actually kind of invert it, because your introduction and your conclusion should be mirror images of each other. They should be exploring similar ideas, so your conclusion will reiterate and echo the ideas that you've presented in your introduction, because it must sum up the ideas of the body. And we already know that the introduction introduces those ideas, so what you have in the middle should be reflected by both the intro and conclusion. Anyway, if you're going to transform this into a conclusion, what I would do is, first of all, reword every sentence, but then I'd go a step further, and just so it is kind of more of a mirror image, I have actually moved the naming of the texts and the name of the composers just to the beginning, so that it is more of a mirror image of the introduction that you can see here. So you can see I've changed to past tense as well. From an analysis of the perks of being a wallflower and the poetry of Felix Janetsky, it is clear that the concept of belonging is interpreted and communicated in a multitude of ways. So you can see how that idea is basically the same as this one, but just worded in a different way. And that continues with the other parts of the thesis statement. So same ideas. These parts are in the same order because this is also the order that I would present the body paragraphs in. So they're in the same order, just reworded as well. And my last sentence, I think it's good, particularly for your conclusion. It's the last thing that your audience will hear. It's the last thing that your marker will read when they are marking your examination responses in the HSC. So the conclusion of your essays and your speeches is actually really important. It will leave it's your last opportunity to leave a really strong impression on them. So you need to try and execute it well. So the last sentence is actually quite important in the same way that the first sentence is very important. The topic sentence here says to feel a sense of connection with others is a fundamental part of the human experience. And this is just basically saying that feeling the need to feel like we do belong with other people or to a place, it's something essential. It's something that every human being needs as they go through their lives. So this last sentence reflects that idea as well, but links it back to the text, because that is what we do in English. Ultimately, what these texts teach us is that despite our differences and divisions, feeling a sense of belonging is a human need that we all share. So it's something that actually is common to everybody and unites us. And I think it's, you know, a nice idea to end on. So I hope that clears up how you can actually put together your introductions and conclusions. When you have the opportunity to take home a speech or an essay assignment, I would recommend that you write the body first and leave your introduction and conclusion until last. Obviously, when you're in examination conditions, that's going to be different, but we will cross that bridge when we come to it. So I hope these videos have helped, and let me know in class or via email if you have any questions.